Hi guys, Jason from Jason's Dog Walking and Training. Now this video, I think I'm going to title this let's say the history of dog training. I found, let's say I'm in this sort of a book club for dog trainers on Facebook. Just a little private page for dog trainers, and everyone posts what they're reading in dog training. And I got these two really interesting passages. They're kind of what was on my mind at the moment. And it was interesting to read through them because I'm like, wow, that's like I see some of my dog training in these, in these books. Now, the first one here was written in 1924. I believe it's called, I think it's simply titled The Police Dog, something about police dogs. But I think it can apply to everybody, so I kind of want to talk about it, make a video about it. And I'm going to read this first, and I'm going to kind of update it because this was written in 1924. Now, of course, there's a lot of differences in dog training between now and 1924. We were training dogs differently, but I'm going to go ahead and read it, and I'll talk about it. So this is like chapter 5 into the book, and they're talking again specifically on police dogs. In training the police dog, the first essential is to inculcate absolute obedience. The greater the intelligence of the dog, the more difficult it is to teach him routine. For anyone who's worked with me, I've said this a lot. I use the saying, sometimes having a really smart, intelligent dog can be a double-edged sword, because yes, they can pick up what you teach them quicker, but just like this says here, it's difficult to teach that intelligent dog routine because they are a little bit more like self-aware, I feel is a good word to use. And they, like it says here, for the reason that his own individuality is more likely to assert itself. Therefore, a rare discretion must be used by the skilled trainer. So, like I said, intelligence could be a double-edged sword for dogs. Yes, they can learn faster, but they also want to be a little bit more individual, and they're a little bit more self-aware, and they do prefer to do what they like to do. Like if they like to sniff, if they're a terrier, they're going to want to do that. And it's going to be a little harder to really keep them under control. And, like they're going to want to do what they want to do. They're a little bit more individual. But it can be, again, it can be a double-edged sword. It can be good in one way, it can be bad in another. But it depends if, if that's what you want a dog, great. Maybe you want that. For some people, sometimes the intelligence could be a problem for you. To each their own. But let me keep reading. Dogs, like people, possess an individual personality. Therefore, it will be necessary for the trainer to study each dog's general characteristics, demeanor, temperament, conformation, intelligence, and peculiarities. Ah, these big words, right? The trainer must possess such qualities as kindness, patience, firmness, and perseverance. He must be obeyed without being feared. I definitely want to talk about this one. One must be calm with, it says in quotations, violent dogs. I actually would change that nowadays to fearful dogs. Stressed dogs, that's another good way of saying it. Persevering with soft dogs, and kind with all dogs. And I really want to talk about the last one. I just want to skip ahead a little bit. One must be calm with violent dogs. Again, stressed or feared dogs is a word I would change. And one must be persevering with soft dogs. I made a video before talking about fight or flight, and I really feel like this is what he was trying to say as I look back at this. The violent dogs, you have to be calm with them, because if they're stressed, they're feared, and you're giving them a reason to be stressed and be feared, you're going to make it worse. As he says in quotations here, the violent dog, it's not a violent dog he's talking about a stressed or fearful dog. If you listened at all to my sort of neuroscience of dog training, I think I just called it dog psychology video, I talked about different parts of the brain. I'm not going to get into that again, but the amygdala, which can really have the stress responses, again, you can be setting that off if you're acting stressful and giving that, and I'm not going to use the term violent dog. You're going to give that stressed dog a reason to be more stressed. And again, I jumped ahead, but I will go back to this. Every dog is different. I've said this in a video before. Every dog is different. Their intelligence, their characteristics, temperament, peculiarities, that's what he says. I like to just say personality in general. Every dog is different. And if you're a dog owner, if you've had multiple dogs, if you've met multiple dogs, you know this. Every dog is different in their own way. That's why I always say every training method should be adjusted for the dog, not just because this worked with my last dog, so it's going to work with this one. No, every dog gets trained differently. And like this was written in 1924. There's been a lot of changes in dog training, and you can see there still was a lot of good information here. I do want to change like violent dogs to stressed or fearful dog. Soft dogs being the dogs that in the fight or flight state, they're in the flight. So he's really talking about the dogs that aren't being more forward and, let's say, an aggressive in demeanor, but more laid back and scared, and, you know, that dog that wants to shiver and run back and, you know, hide behind you. Now the next one, this one, I'm really critical of this book. It's very old. It's not as old as 1924. I think this was written more 60s, but I will read through it anyways and kind of do what I did with the last one. So this says, a dog with a liking for a leg of mailman. It's funny. The dog who likes to, you know, bark at the mailman through the door. That's kind of what he's talking about. A dog with a liking for leg of mailman will indulge his taste, oblivious to the tidbits that shower as manna from heaven. I don't know what that says. Whatever, mana from heaven. He'll probably end up as an incorrigible offender, another victim of have a cookie or shame shammers. He's talking about people who just look at the dog and they only want to use positive training methods. They're too afraid to use anything more. That's what he's saying by shame shamers. It's a funny way of putting it, but like I said, there's a lot of politics in dog training. Some people would believe you shouldn't use any prong collars or any devices, and you should only ever, you know, give the dog treats. Again, like the other book I was talking about, every dog is different, every personality is different, and some dogs can benefit if you use it the right way. The different tools and methods, but that's, you know, that's why it's good to work with someone who's knows what they're doing in dog training, because it is important, because every dog is different, and if you don't know what you're doing, you can make whatever problems worse. So again, seek a vet, seek a dog trainer if you need help. But I will keep reading. Magazines have dignified the prattle of dog psychologists, that's in quotations, who would rob the dog of a birthright that he has in common with all of God's creatures, the right to the consequences of his own action. What he's trying to say here is, I don't think I made a video on this yet, but there's something in dog training we call, it's kind of a experimental psychology, but you have positive and negative reinforcement, and you have positive and negative, well, I should remember this myself. Reinforcement and, I cannot remember at this time. Basically, it's positive and negative reinforcement and positive negative punishment. That's the word, punishment. I couldn't think of it at the moment. And all that means is, well, you can be rewarded for something, and you can be adding something into what the dog's doing. So giving a treat is an example of positive reinforcement. The dog sits, you give him a treat, you reinforce them in a positive way. Punishment, let's use the quick example for prong collar. You ask the dog to sit, he doesn't sit, you rip the prong collar. That's not the best way to describe it or a good way to use it, but that's just for an example. It's a poor way of using punishment. So that's what he's talking about here, which is, it's nice to see. This book was written more toward the 60s, so it's a little bit more updated. You can still see there's some, again, you're seeing some of the politics, the debates in dog training. Some people do not believe that you should use that at all. And for some dogs, you shouldn't. For other dogs, I believe it to be necessary depending on the situation. Again, seek a dog trainer for advice on this. Let's go to the next. This is the last one. There will always be more emphasis and clarity to be had in the contrast between punishment and reward than from the technique of only good, and if they obey, still more good. So again, he's talking about, you know, positive only and how we shouldn't use it. Again, I think it's more, you know, the dog and the context of what's happening, it really matters more than just saying, hey, every dog we can't do this, every dog we shouldn't do this. I think there's just more to it. It's not so black and white. And there is more meaning and awareness of living in a life that knows the consequences of both favorable and unfavorable action. So let's not deprive the dog of his privilege of experiencing the consequences of right and wrong, or more definitely punishment as well as praise. So he's just advocating and saying, like, hey, kind of around what I'm saying, that you should allow the dog to learn the same way we do. You know, you touch a hot stove, you don't want to touch that again. It's hot. Why would you do that? You just learn that that's hot, that it hurts, it burns you, and that's a way to learn. That's how he sees it. Again, context really matters, but it's nice to look at some of these older texts and some of the old ways of dog training, because there is some valid information of it. Yes, there could be a little bit more updating. That's kind of what I wanted to show with this video, the old versus the new. And, you know, I think I did that pretty well. I just wanted to go through those two quick texts. There's two different books, but I went ahead and I just want to talk about them because I think it was really good to know some really good information. If you like this video, again, I'm Jason from Jason's Dog Walking and Training. I'm in Albuquerque, PA, for anyone who's interested in working with me. And if you just enjoyed this video, like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that. It really helps. Helps the algorithms behind YouTube or Facebook, wherever you find us off of. And it just helps it be seen so more people can get this information. Again, thank you for watching. Have yourself a great day.